So this week, meet our top 4 top scholars. Our top scholars this week are actually people that have scaled through so many hurdles to become top scholars, and I wanted to actually appreciate them in the comment section before I unveil our top scholars. So I wanted to cheer them up and give them some accolades. Who knows, you might just be the next top scholar. So the top scholar for the week, they are Ngozi Roland. If you're a top scholar and you're in the call, you can just say, yeah, I'm a top scholar on the chat box. Let's see you and let's get to you. Because maybe you can just connect with a top scholar to know how they became top scholars. Who knows? So we have Ngozi Roland, we have Tembisile Mafu, we have Lena Mukokili, we have Tambang Yatlo, we have Sheila Kipesa, we have Isaac Joshua Ocholi, we have Afolabi Ayomide, we have Beatrice Wanjiru, we have Bidmia Claudette, we have Dr. Teres Muchengwa, we have Notil Nkobo, then Abolade Matthew. Thank you so much for coming out top scholars this week. We have some very new faces this week, and this is so great to know that we have decided to beat every odd to become top scholars, and this is really beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope you have shared this in your social media page and you have tagged us. Please, anytime you share any of these things, tag AFC and then we'll repost for you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So quickly, let's go to the next, which is the speaker's presentation. So because I've said that our facilitators are actually very busy today, and so they may not have all the time with us, so we need to quickly run along and get them to quickly speak with us, interact with them before we continue. So the first person here is Charles Waweru. Charles Waweru is the head of Carbon Project Development, Vast Carbon. Charles Waweru serve as the head. Oh, sorry about that. Oh. So sorry about that. So Charles Waweru serve as the head of Carbon Project Development at Vast Carbon, dedicated to scaling African participation in carbon markets. Vast Carbon was established to scale Africans' involvement in carbon markets, improving lives and livelihood across the continent. Such is achieved by unlocking climate finance and creating green jobs through our 4 main pillars: project financing, digital monitoring, reporting and verification, DMRV, community benefit sharing and transparency. We pride ourselves on being both a technology provider in carbon market and a developer of carbon offset projects. Charles' journey is distinguished by a blend of rigorous academic discipline and practical expertise. Charles holds a degree in applied mathematics and is currently pursuing an MSc in environmental science. His academic pursuits are further complemented by PGDIP in GHG-MRV, which is greenhouse gas measurement, reporting and verification, deepening in his expertise in the carbon markets. As an active carbon market specialist, Charles has an exceptional grasp of environmental regulatory frameworks and adeptness in navigating government relations within carbon markets. His skill set extend across various methodologies utilized by leading carbon registries, including Article 6, Verra, Gold Standard, CDM, and Plan Vivo. So Charles' interests in carbon projects are as diverse, encompassing clean cooking practices in schools and households, blue carbon, livestock methane reduction, improved agricultural and management, electric mobility, and renewable energy. When it comes to developing carbon projects, Charles is keen on knowledge sharing and capacity building in the carbon market, whereas he has undertaken several grassroots, national and international events. In addition, Charles is keen on driving initiatives towards supporting government in developing their carbon market activation plans. So if you're in the comment section, please let us give a round of applause. We give you some virtual clap for our facilitator, our first facilitator, Charles Waweru. So thank you so much, Charles. If you want the call, please, over to you. For those of us that have been asking questions around climate financing, carbon trading, and all that, this is your opportunity to talk to our facilitator that has so much knowledge in carbon trading. So thank you so very much. I'm seeing a hand where they done Abu. So please, we'll call you after this presentation so that we don't keep our facilitator waiting. So I'll still call you after now to share your thoughts. So thank you very much. Just if you're on the call, I'll stop sharing so that you can start talking and sharing. Thank you so much. So sorry about that. I'll make you a co-host now so that you can unmute and talk. So sorry about that. All right, please, you are now a co-host.
Thanks a lot, Patience, and I'm glad to be part of this convening once more. It's always exciting to talk to individuals of interest in agriculture, largely in Africa. So without much ado, I will proceed to share my screen. I want to share my presentation for today's engagement. I'll try to be as very clear as possible, and of course, we'll be sharing this presentation with the team at AFC, and of course, I'm sure they'll be reaching out with a copy of the same. And also, should you have any more questions that I'm able to answer within the time allocated, please post it, and I'm sure Patience and the team will make sure that they're captured, and then I can revert back via mail. That said, somebody please confirm to me they're able to see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Great, perfect. So I will be talking about largely on carbon finance and carbon trading in Afolo. Afolo in a nutshell simply presents agriculture, forestry, and other land use purposes. And my focus today will be looking at exactly just how exactly can we leverage carbon finance and carbon trading within the Afolo sector. And I hope most of you who are here were there in the first week of the launch of the BRESS initiative, and I was able to take most of you. I've taken most of you through the carbon market processes. So I will be very limited in terms of going through that journey again, so that I can spend more time in explaining to you how exactly can you bring in carbon finance and the carbon trading, how exactly does it work within Africa. Again, my agenda will be in 3 areas: carbon finance, Africa carbon market size, and lastly, some of the opportunities, which will just be more or less a reiteration of what any individual can do. And as you can all remember what I mentioned last time, that so long as you're able to prove you have a carbon project in terms of the logic that this is a carbon opportunity, and you're able to prove additionality, that is what you're doing is above and beyond the business as usual scenario, then all it depends now is in terms of scale. If you don't have the scale individually, then you can look at aggregating, that is combining your effort and those of your neighbors or other people within the country or the project boundary, and then you can make sure there's commercial viability within your projects. So I'll get right to it in terms of carbon finance. This should not be confused with climate finance, which I'll be explaining to you. What's the difference between carbon finance and climate finance? And as you can all remember, for you to understand carbon finance, then you must understand the very few basics of what does it mean exactly to be talking about the carbon market. Now, recall that the first definition I mentioned is what you call additionality. That is, this mitigation activity that you're trying to do is basically above and beyond what is the ordinary case of the business as usual scenario. Or in other words, the question you need to answer is that, is whatever you're trying to do, the mitigation activity, is the mitigation activity reliant on carbon finance or the carbon credits, the sale of carbon credits? If the answer is yes, then you are more likely not required or won't need the carbon finance. But if you need the carbon finance, the carbon credits, for you to be able to undertake your mitigation activity, then your particular project is supposed to be classified as being additional. I mentioned the way additional, there are 3 main ways. Remember, I mentioned the investment analysis. That is, we do a financial model and see whether or not you require the carbon finance. If the answer is yes, you require, then it's going to be proven to be additional. Secondly, we are looking at the barrier analysis. Are there socioeconomic barriers within the project boundary that prevents you from undertaking your mitigation activity? If barriers, then there is a case for you to be eligible for carbon project. And then lastly is common practice. Are there others within the ecosystem, within the project boundary, within your country, that they're trying to do what you're trying to do? And if they're trying to do the same thing, what makes you different from the rest? You prove these three things, or at least two of them, then your project will become this additional. Also remember when we mentioned that baseline. What is baseline? Baseline is a presentation basically of the anthropogenic emissions. That is the emissions on account of the human activities that are resulting in the greenhouse gas emissions. So we are able to quantify what is the current state of emissions on account of the human activity. That is very important because it really determines how much of the carbon credits you're going to be getting. And what is a carbon credit? A carbon credit in simple terms is a permit that permits the owner of those credits to emit a certain amount of CO2. Now, don't confuse carbon credits and the carbon offset. The carbon offset is now the carbon project, the carbon mitigation activity that is allowing you to remove, avoid, or reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emission in the atmosphere. When this commodity, when this amount that has been removed for the atmosphere is going to be sold to another party in exchange for cash, we then call that commodity to be a carbon credit. So one carbon credit in essence is equivalent to 1 ton of CO2e avoided, reduced, or removed from the atmosphere. So when you come down to carbon finance and climate finance, to be very, very clear, carbon finance is an investment instrument that is going to be poured into a carbon project to allow the carbon project to come to its fruition. And it can be in various forms, which is what I'll be taking you through. And it's very different from climate finance because climate finance is basically the government or private financing of projects in the areas of both climate mitigation and adaptation within the developing countries. Carbon finance can happen in any country so long as there's a demonstration of additionality, but climate finance, mostly we're looking at developing countries. And remember here I've mentioned two words, adaptation and mitigation. And I hope you're really familiar with the differences with these two, because simply put, adaptation simply refers to the ability for you to prepare or adjust to the current or future impacts that climate change can bring to you. Whereas mitigation simply says you're trying to now either avoid or reduce the emissions on account of whatever is there in the atmosphere. You cannot get carbon credits from adaptation, you can only get them from mitigation. So in natural sense, carbon finance covers climate change mitigation activities and not adaptation. However, for the climate finance, it will be mostly on adaptation. For example, some of you might be familiar with GCF. GCF simply means that the Green Climate Fund, basically, it's an example of climate finance. And just so you know, every single country has a GCF facility. You just need to look at the respective GCF facility within your governments. You should be able to find them. And usually they're housed within, in the case of Kenya, where I'm from, it's housed within the Ministry of Finance or Treasury. But it might be different for your individual countries. But every single country, as far as my knowledge, has this allocation of climate finance. Now, when you're now looking at the case of carbon finance, by what way are you going to be able to get the carbon finance? Now, first and foremost, the easiest and fastest way is by way of selling this, what you call the carbon credits. Now, in a nutshell, what I simply mean is that once you have been able to generate your carbon credits from a mitigation activity, you then go to the respective carbon markets. I'll briefly talk about them in the next slide and simply say, I have got carbon credits, for example, from the agricultural sector, or I've got carbon credits, for example, from the e-mobility sector or clean cooking sector, whatever sector it is. You get to say what is the amount of money you're looking for in terms of selling your every carbon credit, and then you look at the is there a willing buyer to buy your credits for a particular price? That's the easiest case of demonstration of carbon finance. However, there could be in some circumstances whereby you do not have adequate capital to invest or to develop your projects. So that's the option. You will all remember that I'd mentioned the thing called the project design documents. That is the document that simply says everything that pertains to your carbon project. Now, once you have a PDD, you can now go to the first instrument, which is in this case called the forward purchase agreement, whereby an investor is saying, I want to buy your credits, even though they have not been issued ex ante before the fact. So you are going to come to a financial agreement between the investor and yourself. Now, I'll give an example of a mangrove project. Typically, a mangrove carbon credits can go for as high as $40. But should you decide to sell them in advance, the investor will tell you, because I'm buying the credits that you don't have, but in advance, with the hope and expectation that should you get the credits from the carbon registries, you shall give them back to me. I can only do that at a discounted price. So they'll say, instead of me buying it at the normal market price of $40, my offer is to buy you 100,000 credits at the price of, let's say, $10 or $20. That is the usual scenario for the forward purchase agreement. It allows you to obtain money in advance without any loan or equity structure, but you're acquiring the money in advance to allow you to develop your mitigation activity. There are pros and cons. We shall go through them in the next slide. Then another way of carbon finance is by you investing your own capital, more or less. And of course, this really depends with how big your commercial entity is. Secondly, you've got what you call direct equity, whereby somebody says, hey, for me to invest in your projects, I want an equity stake. The equity stake can be in two ways. It can be an equity stake in the general company, or it can be an equity stake on the carbon credits revenue. I hope you all remember, I mentioned this very clearly. We don't have anything like, let's say, somebody setting a project with the carbon project in mind, that of carbon finance. No. Mostly what happens is you're already doing a mitigation activity. It could be farming, it could be selling of the cook stores, whatever it is. So the carbon project only comes in as a subsidiary or additional source of revenue. So the person can decide to either take and ask for an equity stake in the original parent company, let's say in your farming business, let's say you're doing maize, you're doing sisal, whatever it is, or they can say you want an equity stake in the carbon revenue, either of which is permissible. Then another source of carbon finance with the source of grants or donations. We have a number of development partners who often reach out to different players and they give them they give them some grants to develop the project. For example, I remember most of you may be familiar with SNV and GIZ, they do a lot of things in the sector and so forth. So you could get a grant or donation from somebody. Last but not least is debts, stroke loans, depending with the ecosystem, whereby somebody is saying, hey, you need $1 million to the project, I'm going to give you the money, not as forward, not as grants, not as an equity, but I'm giving that money to you as a loan product. And in most of these circumstances, like forward purchase or debt or forward purchase and debts, there's something we call a term sheet that's going to say, I am going to invest $1 million in the project as debts, and I'm going to recoup my money up to, let's say, 2x or 1.5x. To mean, if I say I'm going to recoup my money from the project by 1.5x, it means I'll recoup my money up to about 1.5 million USD, upon which then I'll no longer be reclaiming. Now, the X amount of money is more or less the interest that you'll be asking for. So, as I mentioned, each one of these instruments has got their own challenges and their own benefits. In the case of forward purchase agreements, the challenges are as follows. Number one, this person who's giving you the forward purchase agreement, the investor, has to take a risk because no credits have been issued. It's just the PDD document that says this project, this follow project has the potential to generate X thousand credits per annum. So they're using that as the collateral or that as the promise that or the potential for you to be able to pay back to issue back the credits. Now, there is no particular formula. It comes down to the commercial arrangement you have between the potential investor and you as the project's proponents. Now, the bigger risk to you as the project developer, the project proponent, is that, as I mentioned, you might have to sell the credits at a discounted price because somebody is giving you money in advance without having the credits. Now, the benefits is that, one, you have an investor who is going to be sharing the risk of the project with you. So basically, you as the agricultural farmer or the cocoa seller, you've been able to spread your risk. And number two, you're able to have enough liquidity, that is enough money for you to undertake the mitigation activity. Secondly, when it comes to the case of own capital, the main challenge is some of these projects might require significant amount of money for you to be able to invest in. I'll be very, very honest with you. It's because depending on how big you are, you might need a significant amount of money for you to even pay for technical assistance to develop the carbon projects. Now, the benefits is that if you're using your own capital, it's cheap because one, it's a loan, and number two, you may retain 100% control of your business. But again, the challenges are that some of the projects might require significant financing. The third method is grants and donation. The challenge is that there are very few companies who are able to give you grants or donation. I think most of you know this from your own practices or experiences. So you have so many people fighting for this small pot of cash or grants. So securing it is not always easy, but the benefit is, number one, it's cheap. It's literally free because the grant simply says, I'm giving you money for you to be able to, let's say, deploy fertilizer in 10 hectares of land, for example. That's the first benefit. It's cheap, it's free. Secondly, you still get to retain the full control of your company. The fourth option, as I mentioned, is debt. Now, I'll be very honest with you. It's not very easy to get debt financing for carbon projects, but it's not impossible. Only that you just need to look for specific banks or financial institutions who are able to give you this kind of financing. Secondly, as you're aware, any loan is complex, it's expensive. So just think the same way you will go to a bank to ask them, hey, I have a business here, it needs $1 billion. Before they give you the money, the amount of due diligence that has to be done, etc., is very expensive. Now, the main benefit is that it's a loan. So long as you're able to pay back the loan, the debts, you retain the full control of your business. Next, you've got direct equity. So direct equity simply means the main challenge or the main disadvantage is for someone to give in to invest in your business, they will give you money, but they want a share of it. A very good example or easy example for those of you who are familiar with a program called Shark Tank, that's exactly what it simply means about debts. You see, they simply say, hey, I'm going to give you $500,000, but I want 5% stake in your company. So you get the money, but you lose part of the ownership. And the main benefit of direct equity is that you never have to pay it back because you're paid back by way of equity. Now, we as Vast Carbon have been able to do projects across these different offerings, except for on capital. So we have supported one particular company to be able to do a forward agreement with a particular investor. We have also managed to get one of our clients to get some form of investment from one of these development partners. I can't say because of confidentiality. We are not very keen on debts, but for direct equity, it's something we as Vast Carbon have been able to do one of our partners in the areas of waste to energy project, that's Boucher. So these tools are available, they're possible. It's just a question of making sure you as a business, you have the right documentations in place. For example, if you are doing an affordable project, that is a project in agriculture, forestation, or other land management uses, first things first, title deed. Proof of ownership, proof that you own the land, either directly or by way of lease or something. Number two, any particular investor will want to see your business plan, they want to see your financial model, they simply want to do what we call a due diligence to make sure that you are what you say, you have what you claim. Okay, it usually takes a significant amount of time. In the case of our experience, it took about 4.5 months before, from the moment you had the first engagement with the investors up to when we had the forward purchase agreement, it took about at least 4.5 months before things were able to come through. The easiest way for you to get to find out who are these people who can invest in your carbon projects is very easy. One, you can rely on carbon markets reports. For example, take down this name, it's called Abatable. They often show who buys credits from less agriculture, forestation, and so forth. Alternatively, you could go to the respective carbon registries and see who it is exactly that is able to support you in one or two of these investments. So when it comes to carbon markets, the price within which you're going to be selling your carbon credits is very, very important. I think, as I mentioned to you last time, that the more complex your project is, the higher the carbon market price. For example, I want to look at the image I'm projecting here. It's an image from Abettable. It's a very comprehensive report. Not many able to do this. So if you look at the screen, you will notice something interesting. Credits coming from improved forest management, that is column number 4. One credit price could go as high as $90 per credit. Improved forest management simply means you're mixing the growth of trees with a bit of logging. The case of bamboo, for example, it can be ARR or IFM. Also, if you look at the example, the one labeled sustainable agriculture / soil organic carbon, that is the 4th last column. You'll also see the price per credit is about $80. So if you're able to do a carbon project, and I mentioned some of them in the area of agriculture, and are able to have these credits, you could get as high as $80. When you compare to, for example, the case of cook stoves, 3rd column, the highest price is about $28 per credit. Why? Because when you are doing an AFOLO project, a project dealing with agriculture or forestry, you are directly removing the GHG emissions from the atmosphere. Okay? As opposed to if you're doing cook stove, you're not removing, but you're reducing. When you're looking at the case of renewable energy projects, for example, solar and whatever, you're not removing, you're not reducing, you're merely avoiding the emission. And if you really think about it, the one who's doing the removal has got more direct positive impacts than the one doing avoidance or reduction. And hence, the benefits, the returns will be higher. I'm almost out of time, so I'll quickly go through this because these are just simply numbers. For those of you who are thinking, okay, there could be an opportunity, how big is the carbon market? Now, the carbon market globally is quite huge. In 2023, we are looking at $103.8 billion worth of transactions. Now, within what you call the voluntary carbon market, remember there's compliance market and the voluntary carbon markets. Last year in 2023, the transactions were about 2.4 billion in terms of the voluntary carbon markets. Okay, for those in the case of Africa, if you can just quickly, in Africa last year, rather from last year to now, again $2 billion were transacted. And the beauty with Africa's carbon market is that it has been projected to be increasing year by year. And in fact, between 2016 and 2021, the markets in Africa's carbon market was able to grow by 36%. There are certain governmental and non-governmental entities who are trying to promote the market. One of them is the African Carbon Market Initiative, which has been conferred by different entities like GAP and AC4All, and also the United Nations. And presidents of the presidents in Nigeria were some of the key proponents who are trying to promote Africa's carbon markets. For those of you who are also familiar with last year, we had the Africa Carbon Summit here in Nairobi, Kenya, and certain auctions were done. That was June of 2023. Those auctions were done in Nairobi, and about 2.2 million tons of carbon credits were able to be sold. So the opportunity is there. The only thing that's left is for us, we as African entrepreneurs, to be able to rise to the equation. And as I finish up, and I'll be very quick in this because I covered this last time, is on the opportunities for carbon projects within AFOLO. Again, AFOLO is agriculture, forestry, and other land use projects. So again, you'll have a chance to look at this particular image. There are over 170 different types of carbon credits or carbon projects. All of these are opportunities. Within agriculture, mostly, we are looking at sustainable agriculture. That is the case of soil organic carbon. We're looking at livestock methane. I mentioned last time that if you're able to reduce, if you're able to change the feedstock, or have some feed supplements and reduce the amount of methane that's coming out from livestock, you're able to then generate carbon credits. And also grasslands. For those of you familiar that if you're able to have rotational grazing or something of the sort to make sure the soil doesn't get exhausted through rotational grazing, then of course you're also able to generate some bit of carbon credits. I'll be giving you some examples of some of the projects here, and please feel free to reach out to Africa food chain makers if you have a specific topic in agriculture, carbon markets that you want to talk about. Let's say it's in livestock or soil organic carbon or afforestation, you can make your recommendation. Then you can easily reach out to me, and I'll have a specific session dealing with that specific area, because I can't reasonably go over to all of this because it's a little bit technical, or a bit too lengthy. Also, you remember the carbon cycle I went through with you last time. You saw feasibility all the way until you get your carbon credits. Typically, this stage, depending on the kind of project you're dealing with, can take anywhere between 12 months and 24 months. So 1 to 2 years before the project has been registered. Then add an extra year for the credits now to be generated through the process of monitoring and reporting. The opportunities, if you're looking at the case of waste to energy, there's voucher. Most of you are familiar with voucher. You can produce the voucher. The voucher itself, when it's made into bioslurry, it's very good in terms of improving the soil organic carbon within the soil. If you're able to do something called biogas anaerobic digestion, for example, you're having the voucher being generated by the digesters, also that's a clear case. You're able to improve the quality of the soil. And remember, I think all familiar that organic fertilizers are always better than inorganic ones. Okay, it tends to improve the soil organic carbon. And so long as the baseline is taken, and then after a year or two, you're able to demonstrate that you significantly increase the soil organic carbon capacity of your soil, you get a carbon credits. And I'll be able to show you one project in Africa that's doing exactly that. Rotational grazing, for those who are into livestock, I hope this is very clear in terms of one, you're able to make sure the soil fertility is going to be retained or not be exhausted as fast as possible, and also the pasture productivity will also be improved. Now, lastly, in terms of opportunities, again, agroforestry simply means you have basically your forests, but then the government or whichever authority is responsible in your country has given you the permission to do agricultural activities whilst you take care of the forests. That is agroforestry. But again, the policies differ from one country to the next. So before you attempt to do agroforestry, please make sure whoever has the authority to give you the license, if it's your Minister of Forestry or your Minister of Agriculture or your Minister of Environment, has given you the permission. I'm familiar again with most countries, they don't like having people doing illegal activities within the forest. Even though the forest belongs to all of us, some of them are protected. So please, please, please make sure you get the necessary permission for you to do agroforestry. And then I mentioned about the issue of using seaweeds to improve the feedstock and be able to reduce the livestock methane. That is also a common opportunity. Unfortunately, none has been fully developed in Africa, but US First Carbon, we're trying to work with some farmers within here in Nandi County to see if we can explore this. Now, in terms of actual, when I say actual, I mean live, it's not theoretical. If you're able to, let's just take a screenshot of this image and you look for this project within either VER or Gold Standard, you will see, for example, the actual projects, in this case in South Africa, that are actually able to, one, get carbon credits from grasslands management, and the other one from agroforestry and land generation within through agroforestry. These are actual carbon projects. And you can look at the case of the project called Terra Green in South Africa. They are mixing the cultivation of bamboo with fruit trees. So before you get your carbon credits, you're still able to do your bamboo farming, ARR, and able to do your fruit trees for you to do your harvest, go to the market, make some money from the sale of your food produce, even before the carbon credits come out. Because again, I mentioned, you don't start a project as carbon, it is part of a larger project. So the carbon is only coming here to give you additional revenue on top of the case of these people who are now doing bamboo with fruit trees. That said, I wish to stop there. Please feel free to take my contact in case you've got more technical questions in terms of the opportunities. Others, if you've got any questions that I may not be able to answer now, please feel free to reach out to AFC, and I'll be able to respond to all of the questions and disseminate the responses through the platform. Others, I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm always excited to see young men and women, and also the old ones, who are interested in doing something in agriculture, because as you're all aware, Africa is the breadbasket of the planet. So the more we're able to raise, improve our harvest and get more money and more revenue from our agricultural productivities, I think it really improves our livelihood at the grassroots level. Others, thanks for your time today. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You've really done so much. Like I was wondering if we have time to get one or two questions, but there's one question on the chat box that I want you to quickly address before you go. So, but please, if you guys have questions to ask Mr. Charles, please, you can send the questions to me, or you can just put it in the chat box and we'll get them and all that. Even if it is to make him do voice notes, he would answer the questions and then would send the answers back to you, please, because he needs to go right now. But Mr. Charles, before you go, there's a question. The person said, is in the chat box, he said our farmers are struggling to get the best people, company or organizations for carbon credits. How can you help us reach this organization? Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. So the process that we usually have when we're engaging with any partner or client is they do us an email, they give us a description of their project, where they're located, how big it is, what is the actual activities they're doing, bamboo, they're doing food, whatever it is, they put in an email, then I immediately respond within a day or two. We then have what we call a discovery call, some virtual call for about half an hour, whereby I get to understand more about the project, and then we proceed to the next step, which is if you, for example, I will need specific information to do what you call a technical analysis. So we always recommend you do a non-disclosure agreement. I send it to you, you give me the information, you sign it. I send you a list of questions in terms of what exactly you're doing, by what quantity, and then I give you a feedback. All this is a free service. We don't charge anything at that stage. And then we have another call, we discuss the technical assessment, and then ask you, how exactly do you want us to support you? Do you want us to support you in terms of doing the technical aspects of the carbon project? Do you want us to support you in terms of getting finances for the project? Whichever it is, you make it very, very clear, and then we take it from there. So in a nutshell, even if a particular project might not have adequate financing, we just see what are the best options for you to be able to raise financing in the most cost-effective way, and then we proceed. Our vision as Fast Carbon, and you'll find it in our website, is we're looking to unlock Africa's carbon market potential. And we cannot unlock the potential without you, the partner, the clients, understanding what it is exactly that you have. So once you come into an arrangement with us, the first thing we do is do a 3-day workshop. We take you through the nitty-gritty of the carbon markets itself in terms of the general knowledge, things to do with Article 6, that is the Paris Agreement, as well as your project, which methodology, and how exactly are we going to be executing it. So this service is able to offer to anybody who's interested. Just reach out to us, and we'll be able to support you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this email, mobile, in your slides, they are active for them to reach out to you, right? Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. Very
okay. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. So I didn't. Okay, maybe you can stop sharing right now so that I can also share my slide and see the screen as well for whoever. Oh, there's nobody raising hand. That's better or fair. So if there are other questions, maybe after now, I'm definitely sending them to you, Mr. Charles. So thank you so very much. Thank you. And all right, thank you, sir. So please, sorry, just before you go, one more request, sorry. So because you are leaving immediately, we want to quickly take our snapshot so that you are in it. We don't want to take the snapshot later and then you are not in our picture. So please, everyone, let us open our videos so that we can take snapshot with Mr. Charles and before he leaves, because he has to leave now for another engagement. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. So I'm sure my colleagues are taking the pictures. So thank you for everyone that opens their videos. Oh yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, you can post these pictures even after now to talk about this, and then we'll definitely respond and share or tag AFC, and we'll definitely respond and even share. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Charles. So thank you so much for obliging us, and we'll definitely come calling again. Thank you. All right, so I will share my screen again so that I'll have the second speaker immediately. So, okay. All right, so I just want to assume that you can all see my screen. And so the next speaker is Dr. Ibrahim Yusuf. So Dr. Ibrahim Yusuf is an expert in livestock with over 8 years of experience. He's an environmental protection enthusiast and a climate-smart agriculture advocate. Currently, he works as a livestock productivity improvement consultant on the Advancing Local Dairy Development Project, ALDIM, at Sahel Consulting. In his role, he provides support on various fronts, such as social and behavioral change, strategic development, inclusive business models, IBM, stakeholders engagement, program management, and coordination. His primary objective is to drive innovative solutions that will enhance the productivity and livelihood of smallholder dairy farmers across the country. He's passionate about international development and diplomacy, fragility management, and social cohesion. Prior to joining Sahel, Ibrahim worked with German Development Corporation, GIZ, Intersource Humanitarian Organization, NIM Foundation, and Jubali Agrotech Limited. He worked on a number of donor-funded projects in the humanitarian development sphere, including the World Food Program, WFP, BMGF, European Union, and German government, BMZ. Ibrahim is a registered veterinarian with the Veterinary Council of Nigeria, VCN. He has attended a number of professional courses and training, including cooperation in complex environment management adapted to the specific context with capacity works, steering competence with Lego Serious Play in Bonn, Germany in November 2022. He holds a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, DVM, and a Master of Veterinary Pharmacology and Toxicology from the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. So if you are still here, dear participant, let us give a virtual clap to welcome Dr. Ibrahim to the virtual podium. So Dr. Ibrahim, good afternoon, sir. If you're on the call, I'll stop sharing and you take over. Thank you so much. All right, so Dr. Ibrahim, are you here? Okay, I'm not sure I can see him on the call. Okay. So is he finding it difficult to unmute? Okay, he's a co-host. Okay, so I'm sure he's trying to unmute to start talking. So as we wait for Dr. Ibrahim to join us, let's quickly have our conversation. So there's Dan that raised his hand the other time to share his thoughts about Module 5. So Dan, if you are still on the call, you could just talk now while we wait for Dr. Ibrahim.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm
Okay,
here
Dr.
already.
Ibrahim.
Yeah,
All right, thank you so much. So I'll just
yeah, you can go ahead. Since it's an interactive session, I believe it's an avenue for him to also share his thoughts before we continue. Thank you.
Yes, but he's not here yet. So I'm not sure I can see him anymore. So you can just continue while we look for him. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Ibrahim.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me put on my video. Okay, good afternoon. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear, we can hear you.
Okay, just give me a few seconds. Let me just share my screen. Okay, please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, doctor, I can see your screen.
Okay, so good afternoon once again. It's good to be here and it's good to have you guys join this session again. It's been like 13 months now or 12 months. We had the first session, this module in 2023. So, and then it's good for us to converge again here to have an interactive session. So from my perception, we are supposed to be having an interactive session, not a presentation of the module again. So before I continue, I would like to hear your views and then what we've been able to practice from what we've learned in the previous module, the last time we met on climate adaptation for livestock production. So maybe I'll just give 5 minutes for an interactive session, or let me get your views of what we've been able to implement from the learnings of this module since the last time we had this session. So please, you can raise your hand and then Patience is going to anchor this session. If we have questions or we have comments, we have feedbacks, then.
Okay, so Dr. Ibrahim, so this set a new set of participants. So the last one you met with last year, they are now alumni of the course. So they are not the same set of people you are meeting with right now. So this set of people have gone through the modules, but they have not implemented as assumed because they just started this month and all that. So it has to be, or it might just be interaction from what they learned from the module or while going through it, not really implementation practices. So I just want to quickly put that there, but somebody is raising their hand. Okay, so let me just allow this person speak, doctor. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, very well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So Danabu, you can, I'm asking you to unmute, please go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yes, doctor, you're welcome. Thank you, everybody. I'm Dan Michael Mbidi. I'm passionate about livestock and crop production, that integrated farming kind of a thing. I just want us to like said, discuss, share my thought about the effect of climate change on livestock production. I served in Sokoto, and that was my first experience stating that climate kind of can affect livestock production. Because on 2 occasions, I watched how a sheep, 2 sheep, a sheep and a ram, as in the same day, the same day. These were sheep that we saw, but before we know, see how they started, they fell down and started a kind of seesaw. Understand? So what we discovered was that it was a hot climate then. There were not much water for them. So what happened was that usually they do give them water, but as if the person keeping them, one of the teachers keeping them, never had the time or could remember giving them water during that day. So that happened. And then in poultry production, we can see how climate is affecting the production of eggs and even the mortality of some delicate livestock like broilers. So it's something that we are seeing is happening, and we may not know more of those devastating effects that it may have. And we are very happy. I'm very happy, particularly that we are having you, a doctor, here to still share more light on the topic. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much. So I have someone else, Philemon. So Philemon, I'm asking you to unmute so that you can quickly share it.
Okay. Good afternoon, evening to everyone. My question goes to Dr. Charles or anyone that can be able to answer this. I have been wanting to ask this question since, but where I am from is a rural area, and I struggle with network since we started this. I think this is the first time I'm in a place where I have a very good network that I can be able to ask questions. Now, in where we farm, we live in a farming community that is hundreds, probably thousands of hectares of farmland. That's over 100-kilometer drive. Now, what we do every year at the end of the harvest, after harvesting everything, we have a lot of grass around. So what the people normally do is this: they burn the bush. We have a lot of volcanic mountains around us in which grasses grow on it. So at the end of the harvesting season, they normally set fires on all those places. And this is causing a lot of trouble to us. For instance, it's during this program I was able to discover that there was this carbon gases that is being released during this bush burning that is affecting our farmland. And just this year, we had these insects that came out from nowhere, and they affected our grain, our crops in the store. I mean, a lot of crops have been damaged, and in which we couldn't even have seeds to plant. Now, I don't know, how are we going to go about this thing? It's become something that is normal for people when it's end of the year like that. They start burning the bushes and everything. End of the season, everywhere goes dry and everything. And most time they do that so that these herdsmen will not come in to eat the grass after harvest. They do it so that these herdsmen will not come in to eat the grasses. So they burn the bushes, and this thing is contributing to global warming, and we are not aware of it. How do we go about this? It's my question. How do we stop it? What should we do?
All right. So thank you so much. So Philemon did not share thoughts, he asked a question. So Dr. Ibrahim, I don't know whether you want to, I know you are doing live stuff, but I don't know whether you want to throw light on that when you start talking. And again, for Philemon, we also have a mentoring session that would be conducting at the end of this training and all that. So I would really like that. We're bringing an expert from various sectors or various fields inside agriculture. For example, we'll have someone that will come talk to people that are interested in carbon markets, people that are interested in crop production and animal production, processing. So we're going to have different segments, and people just pick their interest and go ahead to be mentored by people from these various sectors and industries. So I think that would be something, but it's only for people that graduate from this course. That's actually the condition. The condition is that to be able to participate in our mentoring sessions, we must graduate from the course and all that. So that we don't steal the time of Dr. Ibrahim and all of that. We're also having someone that will be coming next time to talk to us about converting waste and all that. So because the grass and all of that, they become waste eventually, but instead of burning it, are there other things that could be converted to? So we have someone that was supposed to come the last time to talk about biochar, briquette making and all of those things. So I think he'll be available next time and they'll be able to throw so much light on this. So because Dr. Ibrahim is already smiling, maybe he wants to talk about this and all that. I'll just leave it to you, Dr. Ibrahim. I'm muted right there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patience. So the issue of bush burning, I know, yeah, it's something very common, especially in the rural areas where people burn the bushes before the next raining season, just like you say. And this, by so doing, it destroys even the ecosystem because most of the insects and some of the pests that you see under the soil. Because of the heat intensity, they find their way out, and these actually also cause damage to the storage of food that you have, especially the harvest which are stored in the store. So these insects move away from the soil because of the intensity of the heat, and then you see them even within the vicinity of your houses and even the stores where these foods are being stored. So one thing that can be done is to avoid bush burning. It's a long process. Basically, it needs a lot of advocacy. It needs government policy, because usually you keep advocating that these things should actually be stopped. But if there is no government policy or policy makers coming in to actually put in or enforce a law to avoid such happening, it's just like this deforestation, like cutting down or falling down of trees. Yeah, there are laws in lots of states, but these laws are not being enacted, or lawmakers are not actually also doing their best to see that these laws are being enforced on the rural populace. So I think it goes a long way for us to do advocacy, and then also a lot of stakeholders have to come in terms of policy making and policy uh, implementation. So that's just my thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Doctor. I think that's all for the people raising their hands, so you can go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just take few minutes, since it's meant to be an interactive session, patients, right? Not
Yes,
really
yes, please.
a module presentation. So
Yes.
for me, yeah. So for me, what I will just do is to try as much as I could. Let me see if the slide is this. Okay. Can you all see the slide from your ends?
Yes.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so I'll just give a quick summary of what we are going to be talking about. The former presenter has made my work easy because he has talked a lot about greenhouse gas emission, carbon financing, and the rest of it. So what we're just going to be doing is just to look at how livestock production actually affects climate change, and then the effect of climate change also on livestock production. So basically, there's a growing interest in understanding the interaction between climate change and then the agricultural production. There's no doubt that the climate is changing, and oftentimes when we talk about climate change, in most cases we look at or we focus on crop production, but we neglect animal production or livestock production. So globally, the primary causes of greenhouse gas effect, or when we talk about greenhouse gas effect, we look at what's the percentage of livestock production in terms of global warming, right? So when we talk about livestock production, we see that the livestock sector contributes like 14.5% of global gas emission. Thus, this may increase the land degradation and also pollution to water, and then declines in biodiversity. Sorry. Okay, so at the same time, climate change affects livestock production, just like livestock production also affects climate change through competition for natural resources. This competition now also affects the quality and then the quantity of livestock feeds, livestock diseases, heat stress, and then biodiversity loss. Therefore, the challenge is to maintain a balance between productivity, household food security, and then environmental preservation. So in looking at this, you believe that if really we want to talk about climate change, then it means that we have to do all our possible best to see that we look at what is referred to as good livestock practices, and then sustainability practices that will enhance a better ecosystem and the world better fit for all, both humans, animals, and then the environment, the population at large. Climate smart livestock production, when we talk about the climate smart livestock production, we look at what productivity is all about, and then we look at how it affects food security and then protects the climate itself by mitigating the production of greenhouse gases, which are methane, nitrous oxide, and then carbon dioxide. So basically in livestock production, when we talk about productivity in livestock, take for example cow or cattle. In cattle, we look at two things basically, meat and milk. When we take poultry, for example, we talk about meat and egg. When we talk about fish, we look at meat as well. So basically protein. Then we're talking about food security. It therefore means that to meet the challenge of food security by making livestock produce readily available, then we have to reduce the production of greenhouse gases, such as methane, nitrous oxide that we mentioned in the past. So the higher the emission of greenhouse gases, then the lesser we have the environment being protected. And if the environment is not being protected, it means that food security also is in danger. So that's the summary. Now, the greenhouse gases, I'm not going to waste much time here because most of the models you've gone through or most of the interactions you've always heard about the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and the rest of it. So global warming, we all know about what global warming is all about, caused by an increased level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Recently, global warming has also shifted the rainfall pattern and induced heat stress on livestock and has reduced productivity, milk, meat drastically. So just like you mentioned something on bush burning, this has also affected land degradation and then other activities in the ecosystem, thereby shifting also even the rainfall patterns. You look at it, the type of rainfall pattern we used to have in the past, now you see that rainfall is being either delayed or the rainfall ceases so early, and thereby affecting even crop productivity. And at the end of the day, this has a drastic effect or significant effect on food security as a whole. In livestock productivity also, it affects both milk and meat production. And then you see that protein as a whole is being hampered, and then food security is endangered. The impact of climate change on livestock production. We've mentioned some of these. You see that animals graze on deforested land. Why? Because most of this land have been exposed to the effect of climate change, and as such, you see that there is less production of even feed for these animals. And then by increase exposed to these dry lands, and then these animals have been exposed to causative agents of diseases, that is pathogens. There also, we have increased drought, leads to unavailability of water and quality pasture, unavailability of quality meat production and reproduction rate as well. These are some of the impact of climate change on livestock production. So overall, we talk about food security. These are some pictures where you see cattle trying to drink from a very dried lake. And then you see cattle also grazing on desert encroached pasture field. Just like mentioned in the previous slide, by so doing, you see that these animals have been exposed to causative agents of diseases, and as such, you see that there is hampered productivity, and then food security is actually being tampered with. Then contribution of livestock production to climate change. So just like I mentioned, it's a two-way effect. Livestock has its own contribution to climate change. Climate change also has its own contribution to livestock productivity. We've talked about the effect of climate change on livestock productivity. Now let's look at the contribution of livestock itself to climate change. Livestock production, there are different processes that lead to production of greenhouse gases. Methane is produced because of ruminant fermentation and expelled by bleaching. Other gases are emitted through the urine and then dung, which is feces. So when we talk about ruminant fermentation, if these animals, for example, are exposed to low quality feed, right? So as such, you see that there's emission of these gases, usually through belching, which is through the oral cavity or through the mouth, or even through the feces or urine that is being passed out by different species of these animals. As such, this emission will actually deplete and then affects the climates. Now, what are some of the mitigation and adaptation practices to reduce greenhouse gas emission in livestock production? We look at good animal breeding practices like selective breeding, artificial insemination. So what this means is that we try to breed animals of high progeny, leading to high productivity. As such, you see that there's reduced gas emission. For example, when you talk about animals or good breeding practices, this will help you to reduce the size of your herd, because the higher the number of animals you keep, the higher the production of greenhouse gases. For example, if you are keeping cattle or you are keeping poultry or you are keeping any of these livestock species, it's always good for you to have a controlled breeding. This controlled breeding will allow you to have a good stocking density, right? Because the higher the number of your animals, the higher the production of feces or even urine. And this contains a lot of greenhouse gases. For example, you keep poultry, the higher the number of poultry beds you keep in your farm, the higher the production of greenhouse gases. The same thing as cattle, the same thing as sheep and goats. The higher the number, the higher the production of feces and urine, and even some of these gases that are emitted via belching or through the nasal or oral cavity. Then look at good feeding management. As previously discussed, the larger portion of methane emission occurs from ruminant fermentation, while the rest can be emitted through feces. So ruminant emission can be reduced through feeding of less grass and then more forage. Now, because of the competition also for animal feed and then human feed, there's high competition or demand for protein, carbohydrate, and all sources of feed, and even the land to actually plant most of these crops. So usually there's this competition between human and animal feed. As such, you will see that the animals are left with no option than to consume low quality feed, as such leading to more emission of methane and other greenhouse gases. So when we have better feed, which is less grain and then more forage, we have a healthy climate, and as such there is less emission of greenhouse gases to the environment. Good fertilizer management, which is part of good waste management and then manure management. So we can harvest this manure to produce biogas, right? This will therefore mean that we have less emission of gas to the environment. Okay, so this is better waste management, just like conversion of waste to wealth. We can convert most of these what do we call them, waste, what we consider as waste or waste products in livestock production. We could convert them to other sources of energy. This is what is being referred to as biocircular economy, whereby you convert most of these waste products to useful raw materials, just like production of biogases. So in summary, livestock production contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emission, leading to global warming. Global warming reduces also cattle productivity and reproduction, leading to low income for the farmers. Climate smart livestock practices can reduce emission from cattle significantly. A collaborative effort is required to save the planet and improve livestock production. So in summary, two things very importantly before I go. We must understand that it's a collaborative effort. And we must also understand that livestock contributes significantly to global warming, and also global warming contributes significantly to livestock production and productivity. So it's a two-way effect. The environment contributes to livestock productivity. Also, livestock production contributes to global warming. So as much as we keep livestock, we should be aware of the environment. We should imbibe good husbandry practices so as to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases to the environment. Also, we must be aware of the environment by adopting to practices, climate adaptation and mitigation practices that will enhance livestock productivity. And then as such, we are going to contribute significantly to food security in the nation and globally at large. Thank you for listening, and then we will now move properly into a question and more interactive session. So if you have feedbacks or you have questions, please drop on the chat box. For those that wants to speak, you can raise up your hands, and then patient will be happy to anchor this session. Thanks.
Of course, I'll be happy. All right, thank you so much, Doctor. There is a question here, and this person is very specific with location. He said, looking at Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania with nomadic pastoralists, how can the effect of livestock production to climate change be mitigated and adapted? So, Dr. Ibrahim, that's one question I just found out.
Patient, sorry, please, can you go through the question again?
Okay, so this person said, looking at Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania with nomadic pastoralists, how can the effect of livestock production to climate change be mitigated and adapted?
Okay, this is a scenario that is very common to Nigeria, Africa. Usually we have this scenario in common, pastoralism or moving of animals from one place to another. And usually when you look at it, most of the root causes of movement is either lack of availability of good fodder, which is feed, water, and good animal health practices in the regions where they are migrating from. They are migrating to a region where they feel they can have these basic amenities inadequate. All right. So one of the ways of adopting is to actually reduce the number of herds that you have, just like I mentioned, because take for example, you are keeping 50 cows or 50 sheep and goats. All right. Most importantly is to look at breeds that will give you the same or even more yield than the number of animals you are keeping. For you to keep 50 cows, then it means you need a lot of feed to feed these 50 cows. You need a lot of medication to treat. You also need a lot of space to keep them. So that's why you see them moving from one place to another, because they don't even have adequate space for them to keep these animals. So as such, the more you keep them, the more the greenhouse gas emission. So one adaptive practice is to do selective breeding, right? And then do a genetic program whereby you can keep just few of these animals, maybe 10, but you keep those of high productivity that can give you almost the same or even more than what 50 of those animals are giving you. So that's just one adaptive mechanism for you to reduce greenhouse gas emission in this type of countries where we have pastoralism. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. So there's another question in the comment section. This person is asking, in the concern of ruminal emission adaptation measure concerning grain, more forage, does it affect feed components of animals?
Come again, please. I don't understand this question.
So this person is saying that in the concern of ruminal, I'm not sure I understand it. So please, if you are still on the call, raise your hand and ask directly, but I'll read again. So it's saying that in the concern of ruminal emission adaptation measure concerning less grain, more forage, does it affect components of animals?
So I'm not sure I understood the components of animal that the person is mentioning, but possibly maybe the person can shed more light on the question. But if I understood it well, maybe it's referring to maybe the physiology of the animal, or basically if this less
No, I
grain.
think this has to do with feed though. It's saying feed components. Maybe, I don't know.
The person can just because I didn't understand. The question is not well structured.
If you're on the call, please raise your hand and ask this question directly so that I don't say what you don't mean. Samuel Ndolo, that's the name. So please, Samuel, if you're on the call, you may just want to raise your hand and ask Doctor your questions directly. I'm not sure I'm getting the question and I'm asking rightly, and also Doctor is really not understanding what I'm saying. So thank you. Is there anyone that's raising their hands to ask Doctor a question? So, okay, no hand is raised. Oh, yeah. So I think everybody, okay, Udiela. I'm asking you to unmute, please unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much. I think because I just read that question the other guy asked, I think the feed component, he's asking the feed component, that should be the composition of the feed for the animal. If we are now going to do more foliage than grain, so, and you know, the foliage gives more of the protein and more of the minerals, whereas the grain supplies more of the carbohydrates. So, especially in the livestock area, how will you formulate? You still have very good, healthy animals, while ensuring that greenhouse gases are reduced.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So I now understand the question. Thank you very much for the clarity. All right. So basically what this means is that you are not going to base your animal like 100% on forage. That's why you still have to supplement with concentrates, right? It's just for you to have the right ration so that you will not also overfeed your animals with too much grain, thereby leading to much gas emission. So it's just to have a proper mixture, right? But be aware that what is healthy for the environment is for you to have less grain than the forage. You have much forage and then supplement with concentrates, right? So these are the techniques, but it's important before doing that, you have a session with an animal nutritionist who will give you the right formulation for you to compose your feed depending on the species of animals and also depending on what those animals are intended for. Is it for meat? Is it for egg? If it's poultry, if it's cow or cattle, is it for fattening? Is it for milk productivity? So the feed formulation is going to be different, but be aware that the more grain you give any of these species, the more greenhouse gas emission and the less the environment is being protected. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. And thank you, Diela, for providing clarity. Oh, Samuel is now here to ask his question directly. If that doesn't represent the question you asked, please, I'll ask you to ask again. But if it is, you can just follow. So, Monkey is so please and ask your question.
Thank you much, Doc. And my issue comes around the issue of the forage for livestock, whereby I would like you to talk more about the legume bypass protein that is available in legume fodder like Desmodium and Lucerne versus when you are just talking of the grasses. Thank you.
Okay, do you mean the available fodder that we have in Africa or what? Hello, Samuel, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was muted, but now I'm unmuted. What I mean is among the options when you're talking about more forage than grasses, my issue is, have you got more information about the legume bypass protein that is normally available in fodder? And can you give the audience more information about that? Thank you.
Okay. So the forage that we have basically, that's what you're talking about. Those that are high protein quality. Is that what your question is about? You need more information about this forage that are available to feed our animals, right?
Yes, actually, go ahead, Doc, and explain, because actually, like, there has been a challenge of when you talk about some of the fodder that farmers give, like the dry maize stalks and dry grasses. The question is, if you compare the methane emissions from them versus when you have the legume fodder, what's the difference? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I now understand. I have clarity of what you're talking about. So, we have the legumes and then we have the forage as well. So looking at this, basically, when you look at even the crude protein content of most of these of forage that we're talking about, it could either be that you are giving them dried or when it's green, right? By the time it's dried, already what you are giving is hay, and then it has less protein or crude protein content. So you look at things like the sugar grass, that's Napier grass, which is available all over Africa. Basically, you see that it has both crude protein content and also it has carbohydrate content because it has this sugar content. You look at other grasses as well, like the Brachiaria mulatto, all these other forages that you have, like the grasses, like other leguminous grasses that you have around. So all these basically have high crude protein content, but especially if you are giving them when they're green compared to when you are giving them when they are dried, when it's hay already. So there is less also carbohydrate content in this when you compare it to the grains, right? So there's more carbohydrate content in the grains of maize than the maize stalk and then the maize leaf. So these are the difference that we need to look out for. So depending also, I talk about what type of production system are you looking at? If it's cow, sheep, and goats, are you talking about milk productivity or you are talking about fattening? So depending on the production system, this will also inform your decision as of what type of feed ration you are going to be giving your livestock. If it's also poultry, depending on if it's egg productivity you are looking at, or you are looking at meat productivity, this will also inform your decision in terms of the formulation you are doing. But have it at the back of your mind that if you are doing forage, just like I mentioned, it's not also healthy for you to base your livestock 100% just on forage or on fodder. You need to also supplement with concentrate. So it's very important. But however, before doing that, just like I mentioned, it's also good to consult with an animal nutritionist who is going to give you a better formulation that is healthy, for the type of production system you're looking at. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. So there are a couple of questions in the comment section, but before I read them out, Samuel, I think your hand is still raised. That means your question wasn't clarified or something. So please, I'm asking you to unmute and quickly clarify.
Hello. Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Now, my concerns comes in the feed management in our practice, where the facilitator has talked about less grains and more forage. For example, here at Kenya now, as a manager at dairy farming, we have adopted new breeds of animal, and they have been trained on a certain software where, in case you reduce any green content in the nutrition of the animal, it will automatically reduce the production. So my question was, is it must we reduce grains, or is there any standard ratio? Because I understand that the different countries, we have different feed formulations methods. Yes, now that is my question. Is there a standard ratio for the grains to be used in feed formulation, bearing in mind that we have different nutritionists who provide, who channels out the different feed formulations like method? Thank you.
Let me just clarify this, Samuel. It appears it's still difficult for you to understand, yeah? So there's no standard formulation. There's no standard formulation. Your formulation depends on your production system, right? It depends on your production system, just like I mentioned. You working in a farm, what exactly is your mission for the type of livestock you are keeping? And now the software you are using was basically initiated, or it was pirated based on your production system. So that is why if you alter anything there, it will actually affect also your production system, right? It's not a software. The software was also programmed, right, using the programming language. So it means that it was programmed based on your production system. If you reduce also any of these numbers, it will affect your production system very well. So now that is why I say, per the production system you are doing, engage with an animal nutritionist, a specialist. He will now formulate the type of feed you are supposed to give your animals based on the production system you are doing. The software you are using, it did not just come like that. It was programmed based on your production system. So there is no standard formulation for any type of production system you're doing. It's not a standard. It's always been altered depending on the production system you are running. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. So there's a question here on the chat box. This person is saying, does raising livestock and fattening sheep to produce red meat rather, and recycling them to produce on-grain natural fertilizer, okay, have a role in Africa? Okay, I think I should read this question again. My question is, does raising livestock and fattening sheep to produce red meats and recycling them to produce natural fertilizer have a role in Africa?
Maybe I should go read the question myself again.
I think you should. I think you should. So, but someone else is asking another question just after that question, maybe when you see it. He's saying if
Okay.
dog dung can be used as organic manure.
Climate change aspect and features, and thank you. Climate smart farming communities.
Have you seen it, Doctor?
Is organic fertilizer local? Yeah, I'm trying to see, or maybe you should read my question. There's raising livestock. Okay. That's right. I've seen it. Raising large fattening sheep. to produce meat and recycling them to produce anchors, not where. So that's the finish. Okay, so maybe if the person is also on call, he can give more clarity on this, recycling them to produce engrais naturel. Engrais naturel.
I think that's a French word for natural fertilizer, doctor.
Okay. Recycling them to produce natural fertilizer. Yeah, it has a role basically, because once you raise livestock and then they are able to give you manure, that's the dung. If it can be used for fertilizer or natural fertilizer. Yeah, this is something that we advocate in Africa, and it has played a significant role, especially now that the cost of fertilizer is even very high. So I think really it has a role in Africa. So that's my question. That's
Okay,
my
so
answer.
this
Sorry.
person is saying whether cow dung can be used as fertilizer, no, organic manure.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Very well. If what? Okay, this is dog, not
Yes, said
cow.
dog dung, not cow dung.
I thought it's cow dung. So this I have not tried before. I cannot tell you yes or no, but maybe you can read more about it. But I've not seen it being used, to be honest. So and I don't know why we want to even use dog dung, because if you look at what's the significant livestock that we have mostly in Africa, you have a lot of goats, a lot of sheep, a lot of also cow, a lot of poultry, which you can easily harness their feces or the dung produced by this livestock for your natural fertilizer. Yeah. So for dog, I've not seen anybody that have tried it before, and I've not read about it being used as natural fertilizer. But maybe we can research more to see if it's something that it's feasible, or it's something that yield a better result or almost the same result with what we have in other livestock. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, doctor. So there is someone raising there. Yeah, and Udiela. Okay, maybe this should be the last. And please, because our time is fast spent. Udiela, I'm asking you to unmute and speak. Oh, you're not able to. I'm asking you to unmute. You have to click on the mute button first. We cannot hear you. You're still muted. You're speaking to a muted mic. I've asked that you unmute, so please. Okay, so Udiela, if it's something we must know, please you can just type it into the chat box, and because we couldn't hear you, you were speaking to a muted mic. I don't know why. So thank you so very much, Doctor. Thanks for availing us your time, and we really do appreciate this. And so I can see some participants already clapping for you in the comment section. So thank you so much, Doctor. Thanks for obliging us. They will come calling again, most definitely. All right, thank you so much. So